So guys, I've been a runner my entire adult life. I've run alongside many runners and I now coach runners. So I know firsthand how common overuse running injuries are. So just because you haven't sustained a running injury doesn't mean you won't in the future. In fact, you are very likely to if you don't heed the advice in this video. According to Yale Medicine, 50% of people will experience a running injury within a year's time, and there are studies that cite even higher numbers than that. So it's very common, unfortunately, and this is because runners are often going too hard too soon. And there are three main factors that contribute to a higher likelihood that you will get a running injury. Those are running higher mileage, running hard, and being an older runner. So yes, if you are an older runner, you are even more likely to sustain a running injury, but you don't have to be an older runner for that to happen. We are all guilty of going harder on our runs than we should be or running higher mileage sooner than our body is ready for. So with an overuse injury, essentially this is some sort of injury to your musculoskeletal system. It could be your bones, your ligaments, your muscles, your joints, your tendons, any of those things that are making it so you can't run the amount that you want to be running, run as fast as you'd like to be running, or the worst, that you can't run altogether, which it's the pits, guys. It's the worst. I don't want any of you guys to be sidelined from an injury. And that's why this video is so important to me, so that hopefully you follow this advice and you are able to continue running week after week in a way that helps you meet your personal running goals. So there are ways to tweak your running that are going to help prevent injuries, and there are outside factors that contribute as well. So we're going to be talking about both. So the first thing you guys want to be doing is build your mileage gradually. So I have this article here, guys, from Barrington Ortho, and they talk about the most common overuse running injuries, things like shin splints, plantar fasciitis, Achilles tendonitis, and they all have a pattern within each paragraph about why they are happening. This is doing too much too soon. Now, the reason this is so common is because we don't actually realize we're doing too much too soon. Maybe one week we can do 20 miles and the next week we do 30 and we're fine, or we think that we're fine. In fact, our cardiovascular system was able to keep up because it acclimates much more quickly than our musculoskeletal system. And then all of a sudden, you've done this for a few weeks, you've done way too much, and you wake up and you have some sort of injury within your body, and then you have to cut back on your running or stop it altogether. So when I say building mileage gradually, you want to focus on the 10% rule. Now, people will argue this, and it is not perfect science. Some people will need a little less, some people will need a little more, but it is a great guideline to go by, and it's easy to remember. We can all do about 10% of a number. So if it's 20 miles you're doing one week, then you're doing 22 the next week. And you don't need to continue doing 10% forever. At some point, you're going to reach a mileage where you just feel good at that mileage, or that's where you want to be to train. I also encourage runners to maybe spend a couple weeks at the same mileage first before increasing their 10%. And at some point, you're going to be wanting to take cutback weeks, which we'll talk about as well. Now, really, by gradually building mileage, you're making sure you're giving your musculoskeletal system time to adapt to the training load that you are putting on it. So next, you want to be running most of your runs at an easy pace. So running too hard is one of the biggest culprits for running injuries. The problem is we don't actually realize we're running too hard because it's not like we're going to the track all the time and going all out. What's really happening is you're probably running most of your runs in this mid-intensity zone or mid to high-intensity zone where you can actually keep up with the pace for the entire duration of how much you want to be running, when you're actually putting an incredible amount of load on your body, and you feel good during the run, you feel good during your hard run the next day, and then all of a sudden these little micro tears that are happening in your body turn into something big and you have a running injury again. So you want to make sure that you're doing 80% of your mileage about at an easy pace. This is conversational, keeping your heart rate about 75% of your max heart rate or lower. And the reason for this is twofold. So one, it's because it's going to make sure that you are building your aerobic engine. The only way to really build your aerobic endurance is by running in your aerobic zone, which is at the easy pace. And the second part of it is because if you're not running easy most of the time, then you are going to get hurt. Maybe not now, maybe not tomorrow, maybe not next week, but I promise you it is going to happen. Your body will respond in a negative way and tell you it's too much. So unlike your cardiovascular system, which will basically tell you in real time that you're doing too much, breathing hard, gasping for breath to the point that you need to stop or walk, your musculoskeletal system doesn't give those same types of cues. You may go out, have an amazing run, go really, really hard, and then all of a sudden that comes to a head in the days or weeks coming after that. So make sure that you are running most of your runs at an easy pace, and you will find that this will do wonders for keeping your body strong. So third is that you want to make sure you are building recovery runs and recovery weeks or cutback weeks into your training. So a recovery run is a type of run that's even easier than an easy effort run, and it's done every single time you run a hard effort the previous day. So long runs are hard efforts, so the next day you would do a recovery run. Any sort of speed work, tempo, fartlek, anything like that, quality work that you're doing on the track, those are hard efforts, so the next day you're going to be following up with a recovery run. And you really need to listen to your body within these, because you're going to want to be going as easy as you possibly need. You really can't go too easy on these guys. Just focus on making sure that you are getting in that active recovery that's getting your muscles and joints moving after the hard effort, and you are going to reap the benefits from the hard efforts within those recovery days. Now you can include recovery cross training instead of recovery runs. So if you wanted to do your recovery as cycling or swimming, that's absolutely an option. Some people love to do that. But if you want to be getting better at your running, essentially you have to be on your feet and doing more running. And so a lot of people want to be doing recovery runs so that they can get the mileage in that they need to be doing to build up to that particular endurance event that they might be training for. But you can do recovery cross training instead. Okay, so next we want to talk about the recovery or cutback week. This just comes after you've had a few weeks of higher mileage building or higher intensity building, or possibly both. Within that cutback week, you are cutting back the mileage and probably cutting back the intensity of your quality workouts as well. So these are usually done every third to fourth week, which means it looks kind of like this. You've got 2 weeks of hard training and then 1 week down, and then you go back a little bit above where you were. Okay, or maybe it's 3 and then down, and then 3 and then down again. So I talk a lot more about this, you guys, in my video on how to safely increase distance and mileage. But essentially, these recovery runs and these down weeks are giving your connective tissue, your bones, your muscles, everything within your musculoskeletal system time to repair and come back from all of those hard efforts that you were putting it through, because you're not actually reaping the benefit at the time of doing the hard effort. All that happens during the recovery phase that's so important. All right, runners, there are outside factors that will help you prevent injury as well. So the first one being that you need to be doing strength training. So this does not mean you have to be lifting huge weights every single day to reap the benefits of strength training. This could come down to body weight exercises, which I have a great video with body weight exercises for runners that I'll share, or it can be those mobility exercises that your physical therapist is recommending that you do. Those all fall into the realm of strength training. Now, the reason strength training is so important is because you are putting such a heavy load on certain muscles and connective tissue within your body, and then there's other muscles from running every day that you're not using enough. And that's essentially leading to an imbalance within these muscles within your body. So if you think about how every muscle system works in tandem, so if they are not imbalanced and one is weaker than the other, then that is going to lead to an injury. So when you are setting up your strength training regimen or looking for one that you can include alongside your running, you really want to focus on something that is for runners, because it's going to target those weak areas that runners don't use as often as they should. Now, calves and quads, now we're strengthening those all the time as runners, especially if you're including hill work and speed work into your training. Whereas things like your glutes and your hips and your core, that's where you really need to focus on, because they're not getting enough love when you're going out for those runs. So include that strength training, guys, because it's just going to make you a more durable runner long term. Now, I know that it can be hard to put all of these pieces together, trying to decide if you're running slow enough, if you're building gradually enough, if you're doing the right strength exercises, which is why I talk about all of this and include this in all of my training plans for the runners that I coach. In everything that I do, it's being adapted to that specific runner. So if you are interested in coaching, I will drop my info below, and I would love for you to reach out. So getting into the next one that's super important outside of running is getting enough sleep. I know you've heard this before and it's easier said than done, but there's a lot of things that we can be doing within our routine at night to make sure that we are getting enough hours of sleep and enough quality sleep within that time as well. Now, this is a very big topic that we could go on and on about, but I will leave it to the experts. I would highly recommend that you guys check out this podcast that I listened to recently on the Running Explained podcast. It was Dr. Amy Bender, it was the guest, and it's the science of sleep and athletic performance. She gives really good tips in the podcast, guys, about what you can be doing to set yourself up for success in terms of sleep, as well as tricks to get back to sleep if you wake up in the middle of the night. I've actually been using some of them on my own in marathon training because I really need extra sleep right now. And that's a big point. The more that you are running and the harder efforts that you're doing, the more sleep that you're going to need. So just consider the fact that you want to wake up ready to go, ready to take on the day, that you're fully recovered so that you can get back out there and do the runs that you want to be doing. Because essentially your body during sleep is regenerating cells, it's repairing tissues that you broke down during your running, and that is where the magic happens. So you want to make sure that you are sleeping so that you can recover appropriately. So the final point that I want to make is don't put a time limit on your goals. So I've hammered home in this video that the reason we are suffering these injuries is because we're doing too much too soon. And by putting a time limit on your goals, that's when you start doing more than your body is ready for. So a good example of this is the person who wants to run a marathon and they find a marathon that's 16 weeks from now and they're Googling training plans, and all of a sudden they're starting the first week of training when their body is not acclimated to the type of mileage that is in that first week of the training plan. And if they're not careful, they're going to end up with an injury. So by making sure that you are setting realistic goals as well as not putting time limits on them, you're giving your body enough time to get to the point where it's ready for that type of work that you want it to do. So work up to that marathon, you guys. Work up to that BQ. Work up to those big high mileage weeks that you know you need to do to meet those big goals that you have. You have time. Running is a lifelong sport. It should be something that's looked at as a long game, not a short game. So make sure that you're not putting time limits on your goals, and you will get there with the right training, and you will make sure that your body is staying healthy in the process. Now, if you guys want to learn more about how to set running goals, how you can make sure that you are setting those process goals appropriately to meet those performance goals, I recommend that you guys check out my video on 5 tips to achieve your running goals.